Good afternoon, everybody. This is a Florida Golden Girl. I am in the town of Kissimmee, and today we're going to look at what life is like in a settlement village. We've seen the graveyards of settlers that came to this area in the 1800s and 1900s from parts of the United States, and those soldiers that fought the wars wanting to come down to Florida. They were provided a land grant, and the whole family would come down to farm the land. Each member of the family had a special role to play, and everybody worked together for a better way of life. For a little bit of peace and quiet, you worked the land and the land gave back. Everybody on Sunday came to town to worship the good Lord. Sons and daughters did what they were told to do, and everybody pulled together because that was what life was like. It was a hard life, folks, but it paid in its own rewards. And so we're going to look at each one of these little buildings because they all played a role in what life was like in a settlement village. Now, some of the buildings are actual buildings, and many are recreations. This is just a museum. So we're going to take a look at each one and see what it was like. So in any settlement village, you always had a few buildings that were main buildings. You had your church and you had your general store, which is that over there. You had your sheriff's office, you had a barber shop, saloon, and then depended upon, what you did for a living, there was other buildings that provided service to the local community. So here we are, imagine ourselves in a settlement village, and here we are at the general store. Now, I mentioned that each pioneer, they were pretty much self-reliant, but however, each farmer had to rely on a few staples in order to survive. Salt, sugar, flour, and then, they collected their mail here. There was also tea, coffee, syrup, clothing, because women would sew their own clothes, and they didn't use a sewing machine. They sewed by hand. That was a skill. So this is the general store. So I would imagine that the general store would have been much more bigger and much more organized. But this kind of gives you an idea. Everyone would have kerosene lamps, and naturally you needed a washboard to wash your clothing with, and then you had burlap bags. And all of the more valuable goods were behind the desk. Saddles, cloth, seats. Here's a little bit of a book. In some cases, the teller would take each person's order, and in most cases there would be charge accounts. And then in 1 month they would come up and settle the account. This is pretty old, folks, so to me this is authentic, but there's all the sewing thread, and kind of gives you just a general idea of what a general store would be like Now, there's other places in the U.S. that have general stores, and each one's going to be different, but this is what one would look like in Kissimmee, Florida. Here's your little post office. And this reads the Postal Manufacturing Company of Maryland. These original mailboxes served the Narcoossee community from the 1800s to the 1940s. Wow. So you had a little combination you had to do. And I kind of can remember those little combinations because when I was in the military, we still had those little combination boxes. And that's what a postage stamp marking would look like. Settlement life was not easy, as I mentioned before. But when you look at what drove each family to come out here to settle in a territory that was wild, it would be interesting to hear what made them make the decision to uproot from where they were to come out here. Many of them in their current situation was no different than what they would have left. But no matter why each one settled in here, they made great progress and great strides. Oh, one other building that I failed to mention that was a staple in each settlement village or each little local community was the village school. Now, from what I remember of village schools, one school served the community, and they were normally one-room schoolhouses, and students attended school for whatever time they could, and then when they weren't needed at home, they came to school. And this is just what a picture in 1901. And then it was given, this was established in 1869. And what Florida wanted better for the youth of tomorrow. And that's the ability to at least be able to read and write and to make a difference. You know, if you learn to read and write, you know, learning opens up new opportunities. And especially back then, where, you know, books played an important role in school learning. People would donate money and paper, and sometimes the more prominent wives of the community would donate their time, you know. They talked about this and they talked about that. But if you look, those were the little primers that they learned from. And then that was the teacher right there. And most of these were heated up by a room. Now each student was broken into learning levels. It had nothing to do with age, because in some cases you had older students that came in that couldn't read or write. And so they were placed with the younger ones. But it didn't matter, you know. Education was education. And so this is what it was like. Now, I can remember sitting in desks like that. I went to a private school, and believe it or not, it was in a fairly old building. And I can recall one day where there was no heating. And so we had to leave where we were at to go to an older building that, believe it or not, that was in the 1900s that actually had working heat, and the heat was just wonderful. But yeah, we had to march across the street, and there you go. That's what learning was like back in the days of yore. You know, learning was not taken for granted. It was a privilege, from what I understand. Kids were sent there to learn, and parents really wanted better for their kids. And so they didn't, I guess the ones that showed prominence, the village would get together and send them off to school. But then with the intent that that person would come back and give back to the community, such as, if he was able to be a lawyer, then he was sent to school. And he came back and was a lawyer, learned a valuable trade. So this one family, it's the Cademan family, and evidently it looks like that was a bunkhouse over there. And so this tells you a little bit of information about a bunkhouse or a bungalow. So this must have been the original house, and then that's in a room addition right there, and then another one over there. So let's take a look and see what we got here. Let me pose this question to you. If you had an opportunity to come back in time, would you want to live in a situation like this? So this is what the room looked like. There's a stove in the left corner, and then these were trunks that they actually stored their clothes in, and rag rugs on the floor, and that's the beds right there. Hot in the summer and cold in the winter. Well, but that was what life was like. Would you want to come back in time to something like this? I don't know. I think if I did, I would want to live in a city. I don't think I would ever be cut out to live in a pioneer village. So this must be the kitchen over here. In many places, and even in wealthy mansions, the kitchen was always separate from the main house. I hope everybody can read that. So we're gonna go look at the kitchen. So that's where the water came from. So this is what the kitchen looked like. You had your stove over there, which was a wood stove. You had where you would store all the dishes and stuff like that over here. I guess that table would serve as the prep table, but that just gives you a little bit of an idea of what it's like. Moving on, this is I'm going to walk out to the front so we get an idea of what this building is. We came from the back. You know, I've been to some places like this. I've been to Montana outside of Helena. They had a town called Calico, which was supposed to be a ghost town, but in Montana they had a lot of the silver mines back then, and you know, you had the settlement villages that would come up quickly, and then once the resources were gone, so were the people. So this gives a little bit of information about the house and who was the occupant. So his name was Lieutenant Colonel Cadman. He came from Yorkshire, England to Narcoossee to investigate a potential investment property to include a home and a citrus grove. Remember, I told you, you know, citrus back then was considered an exotic fruit. And anybody that had orange trees in hot houses back in England, they were considered extremely wealthy. And so this was a family that left England for Florida. And so unsure of what life was going to be like, it just says that they settled in Narcoossee. And so his story is he was a second son, and so he came from a military background, so the second sons were expected to make their own living, their own way in the world, because the firstborn had their life mapped out for them. They were heir to a title or heir to an estate and were expected to take over from the father. And second sons, you know, and third sons and fourth sons and daughters were expected to marry wealthy to bring wealth into the family. But the second sons, you know, they had to make their own living, and this is evidently what he did. So Arthur Fell, he was a friend, and so he purchased 10 acres of land, and from there he made his own way. And so they still kept a little bit of their traditions with them. And so this is their home. Now I can imagine that if they had 10 acres, it wouldn't be in the middle of town. So you're just going to have to picture what life would be like in a town on the outskirts, you know, where they came in every day, and on wagon they probably had servants and were well-to-do, but they brought their own traditions with them. So this would be the front porch, and you can admit it feels cool, but then again, you know, it's the winter. So that's an original piece right there, but you can just imagine, you know, coming in and then they're being invited into the house, and so they would place their hat here, and this is what the front parlor would look like. So this is them on their wedding day. And then there's photo albums and a bookcase. It's got I know I'm not supposed to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. So that's their version of a Christmas tree. And that was the colonel's desk, inkwell, and then there's chairs to enjoy the sun. And then you could see heated by that coal. That's coal. And then the ladies would sit here and knit and do whatever. And then this was, I don't know, some type of desk or whatever. A writing desk, I would imagine. And then This is the dining room. And I'm gonna take advantage. There's nobody here, so you got the dining room, and that's all original right there. Punch bowl and decorated. And then that's where they would store all of the dishes. It's made in Japan, so that's not original. And then the dining room leads into, I guess it would be their rooms. No, this would be a child's room. And then this would be the primary bedroom in the back. Remember that they would store all their clothing in trunks, but this is what it would look like from the back of the house. So this is a 2-bedroom, and then the boys, they built extra rooms for the back. So again, that's a wash stand that they would wash with. Baths were taken with a copper heating tin, and then normally that was done in the kitchen. So here's the living room again. Right off of the, guests would come in right off of the patio, sun-in porch. And believe it or not, it feels cool. But then I don't think it needed to be heated. So this is their house. So you come in from the front porch. So this is what it looked like behind the rope. That door would take them to the kitchen, into the boys' room. And then you had the dining room here, and then 2 main bedrooms in the back for a total of 4 rooms. This was a 4-room house, and that was considered quite a big deal back in the day. So now we're going to go out and we're going to go look at the church. So this was the Cadman house. Oy. And then we're going to go look at a little grave back there, graveyard. So how interesting that this will include a small cemetery. So I don't think this is an active church. I don't know if so this is where all the locals would worship, and they would hold marriages here, baptisms. So this is by the Osceola Historical Society, and this is a construction or a replica of what an 1800s church would look like. Beautiful, isn't it? So normally in any church there would be a wooden stove somewhere, normally in the front or in the middle. And it's cold in here. So there would be the piano there, and but from the front, this is what the church looks like. Beautiful, isn't it? Church attendance. Now, church attendance was something that every good citizen did. It wasn't a mandatory requirement, no. But if you wanted to be a citizen of good standing, it was one of those things that you needed to do. And that's what a historical church looks like. So we're going to go around the back and we're going to take a look at the cemetery, because you know I'm all about a cemetery, folks. So the church was pretty much played a major role in local community life. The women of the town would come together and they would have socials where, you know, they'd probably find out who needed a barn raising or who needed help. And the pastor's wife was always a very busy lady. I imagine the two prominent ladies of this particular village would be the Lieutenant Colonel Cademan's wife and the parish lady and the minister's wife. So there's no name for this. I don't know if this is a mock cemetery or what. But I think this is what this is. Because there's no names engraved on the markers are too new and everything is placed together. So I think this is just a markup. We'll let it go at that. So this is what the back of the, so we went to the general store, this house here, the church, and now we're gonna go over here and look at another house. Is everybody enjoying their tour of the Pioneer Settlement Village here in Kissimmee? I hope you are. It's a lot to take in, but it gives you an idea of what life was like in Central Florida for those that settled in this area. So you could see they had a pump right there for their water. It was probably well water. I have no idea how they treated it. So let's see what this is all about. So this family, his name is James Tyson. And so his parents moved to Florida from Georgia just before the Civil War. So he established himself as a farmer with 21 acres. So at the age of 28, he married a 16-year-old from Orlando. And so so this home, it's a one room. And so this is the son of the Tyson family. And yeah, this is what it looked like back in the day. You see where, it's surrounded by a lot of vegetation, and the whole family worked the land. So let's just go see what their house looked like. Kind of interesting. It's a nice one room, or from here anyway. Now, I don't know if this is original or not. Now, any one room. Okay, so the one room, they slept here, stored their clothes here. Did the washing, the heating. That's to the back. And then I guess this is another sleeping room right here. This was it, folks. Not much to see. Now, I'm going in each building because there's nobody around, and I figure might as well take advantage to give you more of a tour of what each building is all about. So, beyond the main drag is the village depot. And as I mentioned, travel back in the day was either by foot, horse, or wagon. So the Cadman family had all of their goods transported by rail. And then if they wanted to attend a special event, that's how they traveled. And so this is it back in the day, what it looked like back in the day. And then they actually had a rail. So now we're going to go look at the train depot. So going to the big city, carriages or whatever would be unloading goods and services or passengers right there. And then they'd come here and here's the depot. So I'm gonna see where it says please don't cross and do it anyway. So this is original. So telegrams would be typed up on this typewriter, or any transportation rail documents. This is the waiting area. And then this is where the train master would be, his work area. And then that was an old map. And then example of what stuff would be loaded on. Carts and things like that. And then there's the railroad tracks right there. Kind of interesting. Yeah, let's see. So. Okay. So. This is not haunted. There's nothing paranormal going on here. But they do have a caretaker that actually makes sure that everything's good to go. They actually developed this as like an area where people can picnic and hike and everything else of that nature. Little water tower there. Kind of interesting, huh? So this tour kind of puts together all of the cemeteries that we came to visit that I said were places where settlers were buried. So I've shown you where they're buried. I've shown you a little bit about what life was like. This is something I didn't even know existed. That's the gift shop right there. Nothing in it worth buying. It's a couple more buildings we'll check out on our way out of the area. So it seems as though this barn here, it says it's a citrus storage barn, 1915. So there was a certain time that when oranges were ripe for picking, that you had only so much time, and then it would quickly go bad. And I'm telling you, picking fruit was hard work. Look at that. And then the fruit would be offloaded, and then over there it just shows where the machinery, farm machinery, was used. Kind of cool, huh? There's a blacksmith shop over there. I'm not going to walk over there a bit. I just noticed that. Yeah. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed today's tour of the Pioneer Settlement Village located here in Kissimmee, Florida. If you get an opportunity, like this video, subscribe to my channel, click that notification bell to let you know when my next video will be uploaded. Tell a neighbor, tell a friend, tell a coworker, tell a stranger, tell that person that rides on the bus next to you, tell the person that you shop with, hey, I know this cool lady that's her retirement age, and tell your homeboys in the retirement village all about this channel. There's going to be more exciting things coming up in the future, as promised. Thank you for watching, folks. This is the Florida Golden Girl saying thank you again. So long for now.